In the winter of 1876, deep within the remote mountains of Montana Territory, a German physician named Theodor Brennan stumbled upon a discovery that would torment him for the remainder of his days. In a secluded cabin 23 miles from the closest settlement, he uncovered medical records detailing 5 generations of intentional inbreeding inside one Irish family. Yet that was far from the most horrifying revelation. Concealed under the floorboards, wrapped carefully in oiled cloth, lay the preserved bodies of 7 infants, each displaying the same distinctive deformities that had deemed them unfit to live in the eyes of their own parents. For more than a century, the Donnelly family had engaged in selective infanticide, quietly removing any child born with obvious genetic flaws to preserve their meticulously crafted appearance of normality. What Dr. Brennan uncovered next would shake the foundations of everything the medical world thought it knew about inheritance, familial ties, and the extreme measures people might take to safeguard their bloodline's hidden truths. The proof he gathered pointed not to a lone instance of frontier insanity, but to a calculated genetic project refined and perfected over generations, stretching across 2 continents and almost 100 years of meticulously hidden family traditions. Before we dive deeper into the Donnelly family's chilling genetic heritage, be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Also, drop a comment telling us which state or city you're watching from. We truly enjoy connecting with our worldwide community of mystery lovers. Your likes, shares, and comments help us keep delivering stories like this one. Tales that shine a light on the darkest corners of American history. The story that Dr. Brennan later recorded in his private journals didn't begin in Montana's brutal wilderness, but among the lush green hills of County Cork, Ireland, where the Donnelly bloodline first veered into genetic disaster during the bitter winter of 1798. In 1874, Montana Territory stood at the very frontier of American settlement, a region where federal law was more concept than reality. Helena, the capital, had barely 8,000 residents huddled around the mining camps that had fueled its rise. Beyond it lay only scattered claims, lonely homesteads, and native tribes still fiercely resisting settler expansion. It was a land defined by violence and driven by desperation, where families could vanish for months without raising alarm, where brutal winters routinely took lives, and where government authority reached only as far as its few deputies could travel through dangerous mountain passes. The gold rush that had first lured people to Montana was already fading by 1874, leaving empty claims and desperate souls ready to grasp at any chance for survival. Supply routes stretched thin across vast wilderness, turning even basic goods scarce and costly. Outside Helena, proper medical care simply didn't exist, limited to army surgeons or self-trained frontier healers skilled mostly in gunshot wounds and broken bones. It was precisely this remoteness and absence of scrutiny that drew certain settlers to Montana, those who needed to vanish from polite society and its awkward questions. Into this harsh landscape arrived Patrick Donnelly, his wife Bridget, and their 4 surviving children, Seamus, 19, Moira, 17, Colleen, 15, and little Declan, just 12. They reached Helena by freight wagon in September 1874, their belongings packed in sturdy wooden crates that hinted at wealth uncommon among typical Irish immigrants. Patrick claimed to be a prosperous potato farmer escaping the aftermath of the Irish famine, yet his hands lacked the rough calluses of farm labor. Instead, his fingers carried faint ink stains of a record keeper, and his speech held the polished cadence of formal education, rare for an Irish peasant of that time. Bridget Donnelly appeared to observers as a woman teetering on the brink of nervous breakdown. Fragile and aged beyond her years, she spoke only in whispers and kept her children close with an almost possessive intensity. Merchants noticed she paid for goods solely in gold coins, counting each one several times before letting go. Her eyes carried a haunted look that spoke of terrors far beyond ordinary frontier struggles. What the land office didn't realize was that the Donnellys carried expertly forged papers from New York claiming 3 years of Brooklyn residency before heading west. In truth, they had never set foot in New York. They had fled straight from Ireland after a scandal that rocked their rural parish. A scandal sparked when the local priest uncovered what he labeled an abomination against God and nature within their extended clan. Father Michael O'Sullivan, usually discreet about parishioners' private sins, was so appalled by the Donnelly practices that he threatened excommunication and exposure to British officials. His normally steady hand shook as he penned his final warning to Patrick: "What you have done in the name of bloodline purity is a sin crying to heaven for vengeance. Leave this parish at once, or I will ensure all of County Cork learns the true nature of your family's horrors." Patrick bought 160 acres of remote mountain land with gold coins that drew no suspicion in a territory accustomed to miners' currency. The property lay in a narrow valley flanked by steep ridges, reachable only by a perilous trail that became impassable in heavy winter. The isolation was absolute, no neighboring chimney smoke visible, and the nearest creek ran only in summer before freezing solid for half the year. It was ideal for a family desperate to hide from the world. Yet it also posed brutal challenges. The short 4-month growing season demanded expert farming knowledge. Extreme cold could wipe out livestock overnight. And 6 months of total seclusion each year had driven many settlers to madness or suicide. Still, the Donnellys built their homestead with the practiced efficiency of people who had faced such conditions before. Patrick and the boys raised a solid log cabin with thick walls, tiny windows, and sealed interior sections for maximum warmth. The design showed advanced building techniques beyond typical frontier know-how. Bridget and the girls prepared for their first Montana winter with meticulous care that impressed seasoned locals. They preserved meat to minimize spoilage, chose crops suited to short seasons and poor soil, and rationed supplies with near mathematical accuracy, unusual for supposedly uneducated immigrants. But occasional visitors during supply trips to Helena noticed oddities that set the Donnellys apart. Family members shared an eerie physical uniformity: pale blue eyes, sharp angular faces, and unusually long fingers. The children displayed intelligence and discipline remarkable for their age, yet they shrank from strangers and obeyed parents with a submission that felt more like fear than respect. Most unsettling were snippets overheard by mail carrier Jake Harrison on his monthly runs. Even in English, the family often spoke of preserving the purity of the line, strength through proper breeding, and sacrifices required for family advancement, concerns far removed from ordinary survival struggles. The first clear sign something was terribly wrong came in March 1875, when spring thaw finally reopened the passes after 6 months of isolation. Jake Harrison, delivering mail for the first time since October, arrived to find the cabin altered, fresh boards covering wall damage, new chinking hiding signs of violence, and extensive digging around the property despite frozen ground. Worst was the cloying sweet smell of decay that hung over everything. Bridget met him at the door, transformed, gaunt, hollow-eyed, hair streaked gray, voice cracking as if unused for weeks. "The winter was hard," she whispered, glancing inside nervously. "We had complications." Harrison discovered Bridget in active labor, attended only by teenage Moira. The infant that emerged was severely deformed, S-shaped spine, clubbed 3-fingered hand, oversized head with sloping forehead. Its breathing was labored, its cries weak and mewing. Yet the family's reaction chilled him most. No grief, No frantic pleas for help, just cold, practiced evaluation. Patrick declared the child too weak for the harsh mountain air, calling it God's mercy to let it go young. He refused Harrison's offer to fetch a doctor from Helena, insisting they handled their own troubles and that interfering with divine will was sinful. 2 weeks later, the baby was gone. Bridget reported dry-eyed that it had died 3 days after Harrison left and was buried behind the cabin next to the others. That phrase, next to the others, froze Harrison's blood. He spotted 4 small fresh graves marked by crude crosses. The graves looked wrong, earth disturbed hastily, crosses uniform as if pre-made, spacing deliberate. Room had clearly been left for more. Over the summer of 1875, Harrison watched the family more closely. The children moved with cautious precision, as though mistakes brought severe punishment. Conversations hinted at dangerous shared secrets. Moira and Colleen carried themselves with the weary knowledge of far older women. Seamus's stutter worsened around his father. He flinched at sudden moves. Young Declan once stared at the little cemetery in open terror, muttering that sometimes God might not have decided which babies lived or died, then clamping his mouth shut as if he'd revealed something forbidden. Overheard talks referenced keeping the line pure, sacrifices of ancestors, and handling imperfect ones, suggesting traditions far older than their Montana arrival. As winter 1875 to 1876 closed in again, the family vanished once more behind snow-blocked passes. But strange reports reached Helena via Harrison, unnatural lights burning deep into fuel-scarce nights, odd smoke patterns, and cries or inhuman singing carrying across frozen silence. These accounts finally drew the attention of Dr. Theodore Brennan, a highly trained territorial physician who had come to Montana to escape his own controversial past in European hereditary research. When spring 1876 opened the trails, Brennan rode to the Donnelly cabin under the pretext of routine medical care. What he found there, 11 small graves, a pregnant Moira, conception possible only within the isolated family, deteriorating health in parents and children, and locked interior rooms, confirmed his worst suspicions. 2 months later, an urgent summons arrived, Bridget, or possibly Moira, in difficult labor, the family finally requesting outside help. Brennan arrived to witness Moira delivering conjoined twins sharing vital organs, a death sentence in 1876. Beneath the birthing bed he discovered leather-bound journals, meticulous records of deformed births, anatomical drawings, and genealogical charts tracing deliberate cousin marriages across 5 generations. The journals revealed the full truth. Beginning in 1790s Ireland, Patriarch Fergus Donnelly had initiated a program of selective human breeding inspired by livestock improvement techniques, aiming to create a superior Irish bloodline. Early generations appeared to succeed, producing intelligent, beautiful children, but at the hidden cost of quietly eliminating deformed infants. Each generation refined the process, tightening inbreeding to concentrate desired traits. By Patrick and Bridget's time, first cousins, the genetic damage had become catastrophic, skyrocketing birth defects, mental breakdown, and physical degeneration. Confronted with undeniable evidence and Brennan's threat of federal charges, Patrick confessed the century-long experiment. The conjoined twins died naturally after 3 days, but their brief existence gave Brennan legal grounds for full investigation. Exhumation and records confirmed at least 23 cases of systematic infanticide. Facing murder charges, Patrick and Bridget died in custody before trial, Patrick from stroke, Bridget from complications of yet another deformed stillbirth. The surviving children were shattered psychologically and physically, young Declan vanished into the wilderness. The homestead was abandoned, its little cemetery left as silent witness to one of America's earliest and most horrific attempts at human eugenics. The Donnelly case quietly influenced early genetic understanding and child protection laws, serving as a chilling warning of what happens when isolation, pseudoscience, and obsession with bloodline purity override basic humanity. What are your thoughts on this story? Do you think the full truth ever came out, or could other remote families have carried similar traditions undetected across the frontier? Drop your comments below. If this tale left you unsettled and craving more dark history, subscribe, ring the bell, like, and share with a fellow mystery lover. We'll see you in the next one.